Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast. Neil, Emily, congratulations, you did it. You found the medicine fuel.
At long last, we did a small task.
Oh, that was fun. I will say, it's one of those ones where, like, there are certain times when you've got a puzzle which once you've written the puzzle or once you've solved the puzzle, the answer becomes like immediately obvious. It's like when you're looking at an optical illusion and people are like, where's the rabbit? And if you've seen it before, you can always see the rabbit. You're like, it's right there. There's a rabbit in the middle of the page.
Which I think we made you do that last time, Neil. You had to find a cheetah or a leopard.
Yeah. Right? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is one the big puzzle that got you guys stuck for a long time is exactly that. Because once you've seen it, right, I'm just looking at my piece of paper and I've got the word bone scans written down very clearly just in the middle, because once you get it, it's obvious. It just says bone scans.
Same. I'm looking at my paper and I wrote them sort of diagonally to try and match up the lines, and it just spells bone scan.
Yeah, once you know it's just there.
So frustrating.
I figured we could start talking about bone scans. It was an interesting puzzle. It was slightly different on the playtest, where it was the same concept, but
That's
it said...
true. Well, here's the problem. It said rad mag to go for a radiology, but also I had accidentally said earlier, oh, Dr. McDonough, she's a radiologist. So we just skipped the whole thing.
Yeah, so I was like, well, we don't need to. I'll just look for a radiology magazine. So the puzzle was completely skippable. But yes, it used to say R4DM4G, which was rad mag. And I think bone scans is a better version. And a little bit nicer, just a few different letters.
It's fantastic. It was a great puzzle to start with, to frustrate, and to get, because of exactly what you said. And I think kind of hilariously, because Emily and I both love puzzles and doing puzzles together, that we went too fast too quickly. It was kind of a prime example. You probably heard me in the last episode just asking so many questions about what these could mean. Why is it a letter and a number, but the number and a letter? Why does one have three? What are their space? Like, we're just out thinking it in every possible way.
You were going full, like, the TV show numbers, analytical.
I will say I was very impressed, Emily, with your ability to logic out, like, where things would be going. I was really impressed with you being like,
That's true.
well, look, we've already looked at something that was aligning to the grid, and that's outputted these numbers, so the numbers aren't going to like go back into the grid to like re-output. It was good to hear your mind solving through that and ruling out like that wouldn't make sense as a puzzle, that'd be recursive, we'd just be stuck in a loop. So that was really nice, and it was just then an interpretation of what those numbers meant, but it was really nice to hear that. I was very impressed. And it clearly shows you've done a lot of puzzles and a lot of escape rooms, and so you know the language and the format.
Yeah, but I will say that I find puzzles in an escape room, at least at the level or ones that I've done, tend to have, I guess I probably do more linear ones or more discrete puzzles, and the weaving through of trying to like get from a magazine and back to here, like, you know, it's a real combination of keeping focused in your head as well as a little notes, but not getting too caught up in either one of those. It's almost, it requires such creativity to just build this in your mind and solve the puzzle at the same time. And I do feel like somewhat of a newbie, but I'm very excited to hone my skills at this more.
But I'm not a newbie, and I was right there with you. And weirdly, this was a very well-designed puzzle for the audio medium, because if you just saw these things like written out at an escape room, I think you'd see bone scan sooner, or maybe not.
Yes, I think you're right, because in a physical space, you are immediately confronted with the way they are written. It is in front of you and it's inescapable. But because it's audio, you can separate out the concept of a B and a zero much more, like you can separate that from seeing them written down.
And sometimes part of the puzzle in the way that we do things is you deciding what you're going to write down, how they're going to be written down. You've done this occasionally in playtest when you have letters and you just say, okay, I'm just going to write them randomly to see if it looks different and strikes anything.
And it's kind of like, it's another one of those elements that exists in this medium that doesn't exist so much in the physical. I mean, occasionally in a real escape room, you have like, we've got a few posters, let's like shuffle them around or let's move them or sit them on the table. And like the process of moving them onto a table makes you go, oh, wait, these are connected in a way that I didn't see before. But it's much less common.
I have also seen like the inverse in physical escape rooms where there are things written down, and once you choose to say them aloud, something becomes clear.
Yeah, there's a connection phonetically that you didn't see when you were looking at the way they were written. Yeah.
But saying it
So
to a
Danny,
teammate
when
can
you
help.
were creating this puzzle, did you think, oh, I want to create something that is more audio escape specific? Or did you think it would be fun to play with letters that could be thought of as equations, but in point of fact are just read as numbers?
I think I have been
just read as a
having
word.
a lot of fun this year. I did it at the start of the Escape Roomba Loompa arc as well, with things that the sorts of puzzles that are really obvious once you have looked at them after seeing the solution. Like
Nice.
I did that in the first Escape Roomba Loompa, where it was saying words out loud. And it was
Right.
just a complete sentence or set of instructions or whatever it was, but you can't tell that until you know the answer.
But once you know it and people say it, you're like, you're just saying the solution. You're
Exactly.
telling me
So
the sentence.
I think I've been playing with that a lot lately, and that was the feeling I was starting with.
I love it. I love it. It comes with experience, and to be able to be that bold, I just don't think I would be able to be that confident. That was cool.
I also wonder with this puzzle specifically whether there's like a very, very, not even generational thing, like a very specific subset of ages in which this puzzle becomes easier. Because when we were, I don't know, 13, 14, 15,
Very curious.
the internet was full of leet speak.
That's
Which was
a good
specifically
point.
this. It was the whole cultural trend of writing on the internet, submitting all of your E's for threes, all of your I's for ones, all of your and that was just a thing. All of your A's to four. That was, and so like for me, when I saw this puzzle the first time, especially with the fours,
Yeah, you
Radmac,
had
I was
fours
like,
in your draft.
I remember being 15 years old. That's leet speak. That's
That's a
one
good
of the letters
point.
replacing.
I may have been
numbers.
inadvertently ageist and dating myself.
Yeah. People, I think people a few years younger or older than us missed this weird window of internet
It's
culture where it was very
possible.
popular to do this.
This is the first I've heard of leet speak ever.
That's because you're not
Yeah.
leet, Neil. You're not leet like us.
But now you have to ask your kids if they know anything about it either, or if we have really windowed
I
ourselves.
think it's.
I don't even know how you're spelling it. What is it?
Oh, I'm spelling it I33T for leet.
Are we sure there wasn't a 7 in there somewhere?
So the only thing it makes me think of is like when we would spell stuff on a calculator.
Yes,
It's
it has
similar.
a similar flavor to that,
Yeah.
to boobs on a
Like,
calculator.
oh look, I spelled hell and boo and all that.
Yeah,
you know?
real young rebellion.
It doesn't work anymore because
Le-
calculators just have normal typing on them.
True, but no.
Oh, I totally see it now.
Yeah, but it is. But I think, and that's something that makes it more noticeable. I think that was where Neil, when you first saw it, you immediately went to. You were thinking like calculator displays, where an S is a 5, and that sort of got you into the mindset of it, because O and S work very well for that. 4 is a little bit worse, right? It doesn't work well on that display. But if you draw your 4s where they meet at the top, it looks very much like a capital A.
We already had that even in the playtest because you don't connect
I
up
don't
your
connect
4s,
my
but I
4s like
do.
that.
So mine look more A-like than yours.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was great, and I feel like then there was a similar. Was this intentional for you, Danny? Because I don't think we talked about this much during the playtesting. There is a similar implementation where we get back to tendon later in
Yes.
the room, which 10DN becomes tendon.
I thought on its own, if you hadn't done the previous one, tendon was bloody hard.
Okay, so you were thinking it was easier given that we'd done bone scans already.
A little, yeah.
I think that's
And
fair.
the idea, again, when you first started using your bodies to make the shapes, you made 10, and that was spot on. Really happy with how well that worked out. I was worried about my wording being atrocious for that, but you nailed it. And then going on to the D and being able to recognize letters are also acceptable. And having done the first puzzle that had mixtures of letters and numbers, and that being okay, I
Okay.
think that it helped. And again, I think I've done that a couple of times where there's been a bit of an intro puzzle.
That primes you to
Yeah,
do it.
that
That's
isn't
fun.
the same, but definitely gets you ready for another one later. I can't remember off the top of my head which other one did that.
We'll never know.
It may
Right.
well have just been last episode. I'm already blanked out. But yeah, I
Okay.
think it wasn't explicitly, I don't think I ever had a moment of cool, and I'm going to make it the same style of answer that
It
you're
just
going to
felt
see.
right.
Nor did I have a moment of, oh no, are these the same puzzle? It felt acceptable.
Yeah, no, I think it
possible.
worked really well.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. I obviously went straight to crossword. I'm like 10 down.
10 down.
You
Yes,
did,
yes.
didn't you? Were there any out of any of the puzzles and things that you had to do in here for each of you, was there a moment that you felt particularly good about yourself?
Well, I mean, the only thing I didn't lose time on at all was going straight back to the cabinet at the end.
Yes.
Everything else seemed to be quite the struggle for me. And you seem to think like I was that I said wheels for the bed, but you had described it that way, so that wasn't particularly a win for me. That was just remembering
Incidentally,
what you said.
in my original draft of the notes, I'd completely forgotten to mention that it had wheels, so you would have gotten your aha moment for sure.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I'm proud of Neil because he solved so many of it, so much of it. He sounded things out. He saw those patterns. I mean, you are the MVP today.
I do feel very happy for the 10 done one. That was fun because it took us a while to figure out what exactly we were looking for, and I think that was by design. So I loved the blue herring.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Every time you solved a puzzle, you went into it thinking that you were going to get the solution to a different part.
True.
Yes. Yeah. You were looking at the one that gave you the 6 letters, going, this would definitely get us 3 digits because it's 3 X-rays.
Right.
I didn't realize how cruelly deceptive some of these things were.
They really were. That felt like a deliberate play, because you're right? 3 X-rays, and you have a 3-digit code. It feels like that's it. There's the connection. And then it's a real mean thing where it starts giving you numbers. And even then, again, Emily, the whole time you were really good at keeping track of these sorts of goal-oriented puzzles. Because when you got the 10, it was just like, wait a minute, we can't get a 10 from this because that's going to get us too many numbers. And it was then 4, which is right. That's a moment of is this going to work? Yeah. And it was then forced, because it's also, it's not getting you letters yet. So how could it be for the 6-letter combo?
This
and then
one
the fact
was very much, just let it happen.
Yes. Yeah. It really needed just go with it. Just see what happens next. But
again, I was overthinking it probably because I'm used to your longer form singular rooms. Yeah. And so this being a bit of a mini room with fewer puzzles that have to connect in a longer narrative, I was probably overthinking that. But once we honed in on it, I have to say it was really fun to create those the line images of 10 and D and N with my own body and my own mind.
I'm glad we got to get physical with this.
That was fun.
Did you video this archive for yourself?
No, this is unrecorded. You'll have to film it yourself afterwards.
This is the next big TikTok.
But it was lovely, and I like your restraint in not scowling at our when we're going down the wrong path. You're just there, emotionless. Not reacting, but I like the thumbs up when we're on the right track.
Every time you say something, you go, is it about this? I am either going, oh no, I totally made it look like that. I'm so terrible at this. I've led them completely astray. What have I done? Or else I'm going, oh, that's good. Maybe next room.
But I think that there's also an element of that where it's based on a feeling of the guests. Sometimes we have guests, I felt like if we had hinted too much to you with our facial expressions, with our body, I think you maybe wouldn't have appreciated that in terms of it being taking a solution away from you, because you love escape rooms, you're so into puzzles. And so I think if you had been different guests who were here for a fun, silly time, who weren't as experienced, or who weren't showing that
I probably would have put up the bumpers a little bit more.
Yes, it would have been. We would have definitely had a bit more. They would have said, "Oh, is this going to relate back to the chair?" And we would have had and I think because they would appreciate that, they're like, "Okay, thanks." But you had such a clear analysis of how you were doing the puzzles. You were ruling those things out yourself. When we didn't want to,
we believe that you were
take
able
that
to
from you.
Find the things.
And so, if you'd been other people, we would have hinted.
We like saying yes more than no as well. Everyone feels good about yeses.
It was remarkably astute because the escape room that we recently did together, when we went into the hallway and were given the pre-show kind of explanation of what not to touch and don't break things. He mentioned hints if we needed them, and that he would sort of be able to steer us with hints without us necessarily having to ask. But if we did need a hint, that we were supposed to ask explicitly. And Emily said in a very admonishy, brilliant way, she said, but you only give us a hint if we have explicitly asked for one. She didn't want to be coddled. She didn't want to be handheld. She didn't want them to assume that we needed a hint and like spin it. She said, we will let you know when we want a hint. And I remember in the hallway going, oh, look at her.
But it's true.
But it's kind of true. Yeah.
It happens sometimes when you're in an escape room and then you're about to get it, and then someone comes over the loudspeaker. They're like, have you checked the drawer? And you're like, I was about to check. I was walking to the drawer. Right. You've ruined it. I was on my way.
It was a brilliant.
And I usually have a fail-safe in there, and I say, unless we request unanimously, no desperate team member gets to ask for it.
Neil's in the corner going, please, give me a hint. No, Neil, not for you.
Good times.
I think my only thing that I like with that, like as the only caveat I would ever give to a game master like that is like, give us a hint only if we ask for one. But if we're like 20 minutes behind, let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Like if we don't think we need a hint, but you're like, you desperately need a hint, let us know, but don't just tell us. Let us be like,
yeah, that's true. I like to do that with time things. If we've been stuck looking for the same screwdriver for 15 minutes, then okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay, at this point, please.
You nailed it. I have said, if we are 20 minutes and haven't made an inch of progress, you may ask us if we want a hint.
Yes.
Yeah. You may ask. We might not say yes.
It's just the satisfaction isn't just incrementally decreased if you solve with a hint. It's like, it's not even a win anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, we did it. But, you know.
And you never know the level, whether or not you're going to get a hint that's like, just as a reminder, you've seen the solution before. You can be like, oh, okay, like that's still a satisfying hint. But when they're just like, just as a reminder, the key is hidden underneath that chair in the corner, and the code is D74. You're like, oh no, thanks for the hint,
reminder.
Man. Like, you know, and I think for us, like running the show for so long, you get an idea of how to hint and what level of hint and more and more, I think if you look at our early episodes compared to now, early episodes we're like, oh, here's like a hint that'll help you answer the question. And now there's a lot more just, hey, first of all, why don't you just talk through your reasoning? And then if that doesn't work, the next hint is like, oh, you have seen this, or like that you haven't looked at everything in the room yet. And like hints that are just these vague ideas of like I think for this one, our biggest hint was a subtle one, which Neil picked up the language that Danny was using of when you were like, this is going to get us a 5-digit code. And Danny was like, yep, this will get you, like, you might get the 5-digit code or something that like leads to the 5-digit code. And Neil went, ooh, something that leads to it. Maybe we got to pull away from trying to get 5 explicit digits and maybe just look at this less goal-oriented, like look at it as the next step. And that's, I think, part of what helped you get to bone scans, because you're like, okay, I have to free up my mind and not just reject ideas that don't lead to 5 digits or 5 letters. Yeah. So I think like hints like that are just like, hey, take a second, player, rethink what you're thinking. You don't even need to tell them what to think. Just like, you're not on the right track is enough of a hint, or you said the right thing once. And I like those types of hints because I think they don't take away that feeling of success, especially when you frame it like you have already done the correct thing. So this is still your solution. You just didn't go far enough. So like keep with your ideas. And I think those hints, when I get them as well, I think is more satisfying. Like, yes, that's right. I did come up with that.
Sure. Puzzle hunts do this in an interesting way because a lot of them offer different levels of hints after a certain amount of time has passed or something like that. The first one, completely obtuse and just almost another example that you could use to figure out what's going on in them. Because a big part of puzzle hunts is not the process of solving a puzzle. It is staring at a thing that means absolutely nothing and then translating it and realizing here is how it makes sense. And it's incredibly difficult. And so the hints for those have to very carefully not just blow the aha moment for you. And by the time they get to the final clue, they just do. But Or it's also, though, very frustrating on a puzzle hunt when you have no idea, you get the first clue, and yes, it's exactly the same, so you still have just as little idea what's going on.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, I can't wait to do the next one. When I do another one?
Well, that was interesting because I was just about to ask a question to Emily, but sort of watching Bill and Danny this is sort of based loosely on ET. And so I'm wondering what if we're 2 of 5, I'm guessing.
2 of 4,
Yeah,
actually.
there's only 2 more.
Oh, 2 of 4. So that means what other
Please,
big
what's happening?
Yeah, what's going to
moments
happen for the rest of the room?
in ET? Let's predict what the other 2 scenarios will be.
Oh, I can play this game because I haven't done the other 2 rooms at all. We haven't tested them. We haven't fought them. So I'm as in
I
the
think
dark as
one
you.
will have to be some sort of bicycle flying through the air, chasing the cops kind of bicycle-y thing. Although that's not a locked room so much. What about in a closet with all the stuffed animals?
Maybe, but then there's also like the question of like what has happened. These steps of the narrative, like the last thing that happened just then was government agents have stolen our ship and we have to get it back. So there's like a ship heist outside of the movie E.T. It's like the narrative
Let's keep in mind,
structure
I
is
don't
like,
think I've
let's
watched
get our
E.T. since I was about 4, so I don't remember
okay.
the story beats of E.T. very well.
Okay, so yeah, we'll probably have to go to some sort of government thing and break in and get and find our ship, and then maybe the 4th one will be like once we're back on the ship, how to get it. Wait, we had to know. Wait, I wrote a note down. We need our severed fuel line fixed.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
that's
we'll probably
right.
have to fix said
Yeah.
severed fuel line in order to split.
It's fun. I
Nice.
wonder. You could
Here
almost
for
do
it.
2 episodes just in the government. Like one is getting to your ship, and then the last one is you have to fix your ship and get out of here while
Right.
like the time limit is people are trying to get into the room and like government agents. You could do 2 just in there, or it could be 1. I have no idea. Maybe you escape, and then the final one is like you go home to your planet. And there's an escape room there. Woohoo! Do that.
An outer space one.
It's a Gore
Well
Blaxian
played.
escape room.
This is also a question often in mine, both in the long form ones and still in Escape Room Loompa. I have done a pre-final episode twist of some sort. Is 4
yeah,
episodes
that's
enough for
true.
a twist?
The humans have been the aliens the whole time, and your ship is a time machine.
Oh
To go,
no!
like,
You're
you-
just an ape.
You're a Morlock, and so you've traveled back in time. I can't keep track.
That's a lot. That's a commitment. That suggestion.
Yeah, can you change it up and just
Oh,
do
yeah,
that?
episode
This
4 is
reminds
8
me-
hours long.
This reminds me a little bit of a podcast called The Infinite Escape Room, which I think you guys mentioned.
Yep, they're great. They've been on.
They're fun, but they're very short.
They
I mean,
are.
they're
They are
shorter rooms
shorter
and
form.
a bit
Fewer
more
things going
conversational
on,
fun, but they're good.
and they're very, very humor based. They are funnier than me.
They have a whole different style, but
Yeah.
but what I enjoy about listening to that sometimes is just how short it is, because it
Mm.
feels almost spontaneous. Like, oh shoot, I've quickly got to come up with something. I'm going to come up with like 3 things that sort of connect, and I'll wrap it around a fun story, which is as an improv game is fantastic to listen to because they're smart. At the same time, I do enjoy the thought behind all the puzzling that you do in this on this show. So it's fun to see your version of short format, like in comparison. I enjoy yours a lot. Theirs is great, super fun too. I don't mean it as a diss on
No,
them.
yeah,
No,
but
of
yeah,
course.
it's a
fun.
different style of the same
Yeah.
sort of focus. Well, look, I enjoyed playing this room, and I really enjoyed listening to you 2 play it as well. You got sort of caught up on similar things to me, and it was nice to like see your thought process going through the magazines as well. I think Emily, you had a similar thought to me of like, we've used those magazines now, so I don't need to go back to them. And then suddenly it's like, wait a minute, the only thing I know is I'm looking for a physio. Eventually you cave, you look at the magazines, you're like, oh, well, oh, look at the magazines for everything. You're going to make me do.
Forever.
I had a similar thought, but it was.
I like having that sometimes. Obviously, you don't want to go too much into repeat use of objects, but I also like a trusty go-to sometimes.
Yeah, you know, we got. Besides, you didn't use the radiology magazine twice, so it
That's
doesn't
true,
break the
exactly.
rules.
I appreciate how well you did all of the check marking off the maintenance stuff and recognizing that it was the upside down frowny face, seeing the word chair and windows, because I don't know if my notes are in any way visible, but that was what I spent the most time trying to figure out.
How to make it look like a
Trying
frown.
to figure out words that spelled out chair that could be instructions for cleaning.
That's why
cobweb free.
rotating thing. Yeah, cobweb free is a bit of a
Iodized.
stretch.
Cobweb
But
free,
yeah,
nice.
look, it was fantastic to have both of you. Thank you so much for coming on. It was
It
great
was
to
wonderful
have
to
you.
talk with you again.
I loved it.
And Emily,
Great
I know
time.
you
so
asked when the
much.
next one is. I'm not sure, but you can also always go back to any of these rooms. All the notes are available to everybody for free. Get Neil to run one. Find a room that Neil played and
Yeah.
get him to run it for
Okay.
you.
But that would be fun.
Neil can be the
That'd be
Danny
fun.
for the magic themed room. Yeah, there's a magic room that Neil
Mm,
did.
that was
He
a
can
good
run
one.
it for you. And you can all play it, and you can just record that, send it to us. We'll make it an extra episode. Yeah, that saves us some work.
Got it.
But it was lovely to have you. Neil, is there anything going on right now that you want to send people's attention to? If people listen to this, anything going on in the Neilverse?
I just finished production of a show that I sort of co-created and produced for Hulu called Drag Me to Dinner, which is a parody reality food competition show.
Excellent.
It's two pairs of drag queens each trying to throw the best dinner party. And so we got 40 amazing drag queens. We filmed one a day.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a parody. That sounds deadly serious.
And well, but we're kind of spoofing the genre a bit. So it'll be fun. And it was a lot of work. That's called Drag Me to Dinner, will be out next year. And we're hopeful that Uncoupled season 2 gets picked up on the Netflix, but it
Yes, for
hasn't
people
yet,
who haven't
so
watched
may-
Uncoupled, go check it out. It's a fantastic show.
a fun
like-
show.
So good.
You
Hope
have
to
to be
film more of
willing to
those.
be sad.
You got to be willing to be a little bit sad.
You got to be in that sort of mood where you're okay being happy and sad.
Yeah, it's
It's
funny. It's
a
poignant.
Star
It's,
show.
it's just very, and yeah, and a
And
lot of
otherwise, I
really good
just-
performances.
Just celebrated our kid's 12th birthday on the 12th of October. It was their golden birthday, and we just threw a big giant party for them where 20 kids were sleeping over at our fun house in tents in the backyard. So I'm beat up, but we didn't film that. That's just in my own world. So that's my life.
Wonderful. And Emily, is there anything that's fun going on you want people could check out or do?
In terms of show business, certainly the new season of Fool Us starts on
Yes.
Friday. That's not mine, but
Claim
I
it
cook
anyway.
Dinner for the Star. And then, I mean, the only thing I'm really involved with that's big enough to tell your audience is there's a wonderful show on Broadway that I'm an investor in called A Strange Loop.
Ooh.
And,
that sounds
uh,
cool.
It
It's
won the Tony
real.
for Best Musical, and it won, I think, the Pulitzer.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it
that's
did.
exciting.
And Best book, I believe, or something. It won one other Tony. You think I would know for sure, but it is absolutely fabulous. I saw it 4 years ago in a very small theater and could not get out of my seat. I wrote to the writer. I found his email and I said, "This is the best thing I've ever seen. If you ever move forward, can I please invest?" And they contacted me in October of 21. I invested in February 22. It opened in March of 22 and won 2 Tony Awards in June.
Yeah,
Amazing.
best musical and best book.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
And now Emily has a Tony.
True.
And I will say, she co-produced a documentary film called Tim's Vermeer. Am I wrong about that?
You are correct. That is one of my favorite things.
I don't know if you've seen Tim's Vermeer. There's an artist named with the last name Vermeer,
hmm
and he's Johann Vermeer, very famous. And everyone has always kind of wondered how he created these images back in the day to be so striking and photogenic. when technologies didn't exist really to do that. And it follows a guy who was obsessed with how it worked and recreating a Vermeer himself. And it's for all sort of puzzle escape enthusiasts. It's like hour and a half minute, maybe less, documentary following this guy's crazy obsession, and it feels like a puzzle being solved as a documentary.
I
It was
love
wonderful.
it.
It's thrilling. I find it to be almost roller coaster like. It's just so exciting, and I think it eclipses Anne Mary's art and puzzles and documentary. It's just a thing of its own, and I was only tangentially involved in making it happen, but the creativity goes to Penn and Teller.
For sure.
And Tim.
Directed by
Awesome.
Teller.
Yeah.
It's called Tim's Vermeer. You should check that out as well.
Definitely.
Wonderful.
That sounds awesome.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody at home, for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to help support the show, first of all, just go tell a friend, go tweet about it, go post it on Reddit, make a TikTok of you dancing to a piece of text that tells people to go
body physio
and
poses.
listen. I don't know how TikTok works, but do it. And otherwise, if you want to help support the show and everything we make, there is a new season of Solve This Murder that is probably halfway or almost close to being done by the time this episode comes out. So go and check that out. It's fantastic. It's murder mystery that Danny tries to... Yeah, it's better than anyone we've ever done before. It's a murder mystery show and it's great fun. But you can support everything that we do at our Patreon. There's a link in the show notes. Any donor of any level gets to appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms.
Thank you so much to Trish McDonough for that.
Thank you, Trish McDonough.
Sorry you have such a scattered brain.
Well, you know...
happens.
And then there are bonus episodes for the $5 donors. You can listen to the playtest audio. You can listen to our 2-minute mysteries where we try and solve strange murder mysteries, which is a very fun, ridiculous series.
Other stuff. We have badges and pins that we send out. I post some of my room art on the Patreon now.
Yep.
And we're going to, at some point, start putting up another little project on there that people can have a bit of interaction with.
Yes,
so,
yeah, there's a fun project coming out, but we'll wait and tell you about it once it's out, because in case we don't do it, then you can't hold us accountable. All right, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you again, Neil and Emily.
Thank you so much, Uche.
And thanks, Danny, for running the
Thank
room.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Hip hip hooray.
Bye.
Hip hip hooray!